Come on in. I hope you're having a fabulous start to the week. We are getting into one of the last weeks here in April. 2025 is flying by. If you are not familiar with me, my name is Aries Rose, and welcome to Aries Rose TV. Here we talk about streaming shows, movies, TV shows, celebrity news, pop culture, local news, world news, politics, basically anything I find interesting, I come on and discuss with my Aries crew. Tonight we have a great show lined up for you. We also have some other great topics we're going to talk about later on in the week, but tonight we are going to talk about Ms. Gayle King. She does not feel like the trip she took to space is getting enough respect. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're also going to talk about Karmelo Anthony. There's an update in that case. So we'll get some more information of some of the latest things that have gone on. We also have an update in the Caleb Wilson case. So I said that I was going to keep track on that. So I did some research and seen that there was some additional information available that I want to come on and share with the Aries crew. And then our last story for tonight is going to be about an unfortunate event where a father lost his life in a hatchet attack. So we're going to get into some details with that. But before we get started, you know the drill. If you are part of the Aries crew, leave hashtag Aries crew in the comments. I want to give you a shout out for stopping by. If you are a first time watcher, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Leave first time watcher in the comments. I want to give you a shout out for stopping by. And if you have not already done so, like the video as you come in. It costs nothing and it means a lot to support the channel. It helps get us out here in the YouTube algorithm. So without further ado, let's go into our first story for tonight. So Gayle King was among, I want to say 5 or 6 other women that went on an all-women crew or maybe passenger flight to space recently. So Gayle King was with Katy Perry, Carrie Ann Flynn, Amanda Nguyen, Alicia Bowe, and Lauren Sanchez. So all of them were on this trip to space through Blue Origin, which is a company that's run by Jeff Bezos, who formerly ran Amazon. So let's talk a little bit about everybody that was on this particular space trip. Katy Perry, she's an entertainer, singer, songwriter. Carrie Ann Flynn is a film producer, socialite, and space tourist. I like that name, space tourist. Amanda Nguyen is a social entrepreneur, civil rights activist, bioastronautics researcher. And then we have Aisha Bowie, aerospace engineer, STEM advocate, and entrepreneur. And STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Along with Gayle King, who is a television personality, author, and broadcast journalist, and Lauren Sanchez, an American journalist and fiance to Jeff Bezos, and he's the founder of Blue Origin. So this trip took place on April 14th, this year 2025, on Blue Origin NS-31's suborbital mission. Gayle King and Lauren Sanchez were the first female journalists to fly in space. And the whole trip took 11 minutes for them to go up and come back down to Earth. So Gayle has a response back to all the criticism. So essentially, people were saying, what's the point of this particular trip that they went on? She doesn't like that it's called a trip or that it's kind of seen as something that was frivolous. And so she had some responses back to that. But people were looking at it like, you basically just went up and then you came back down. You didn't really study anything. The purpose of it, I'm not sure if it was to see if it's even viable to do kind of space tourism. And they were just, part of some of the first people to try this out. Or if there was a greater purpose to their particular trip, maybe not to what the company is trying to achieve overall, but there's a greater purpose to their trip. So people were thinking for all the money that it took to get you guys into space to come right back down in 11 minutes, that could have been used here on Earth to make Earth a better place where we live in now, or help, support the people who are struggling right now versus spending the money on that. So let's get into Gayle King's response back to that. And so she says in response to the criticism, quote, "My question is, have y'all been to space? Go to space or go to Blue Origin and see what they do and how they do, and then come back and say this is a terrible thing. Is it expensive? Yes. But one of the things they're trying is if you get enough people who are interested, it doesn't have to be that expensive," end quote. So, per the company's website, it's a deposit of $150,000 to be able to secure a seat on um, one of their trips to space. $150,000 deposit. So that's not even the full cost. That is just a deposit to be a part of it. So while I can appreciate what Gayle is saying, most people cannot afford to go pay to go to space. We just don't have Gayle King money. Not to mention, Gayle King is connected to Oprah, who is a billionaire. So, I mean, you run in circles with people that have a lot of money. You're probably not understanding the average man. The most they can do with space is look up into the sky, not be able to actually travel there, let alone put all of that money down as a part of the cost, and the company's website does not disclose how much it costs. So I don't know how much in total you end up spending going on. Now, I'm imagining Lauren Sanchez didn't pay very much because she's Jeff Bezos' fiance, if she paid at all to go. But as far as everybody else, it's not known who may have paid or who was comped a trip to go there. But it is receiving a lot of backlash. And I do find it kind of interesting, and the timing as well, with all the stuff that's going on in the world and with politics and the economy. It just didn't seem like it was necessarily pushing mankind's um, understanding and knowledge of space any further than what it is right now. Other than, I guess, you can send them up and send them right back down in less than 15 minutes, and it was done safely. So, I mean, that is an accomplishment because it's not easy to get to space, and there's a lot of things that can go wrong. So, in that sense, the fact that everybody made it there and back safely is something to be proud of. I just don't know if this trip fits like Gayle wants it to be seen. She feels as though her being a part of that was inspiring to women and young girls. I don't know how many may have felt inspired by that, even thought about it or cared about their trip. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. Love to hear from the Aries crew and see how you feel about it. Do you think it was a waste and that trip that they took to space really wasn't that beneficial? Or do you think that it's a good thing? Let me know. Let's keep this conversation going. If you're here on the live, let me know if you're part of the Aries crew by saying hashtag Aries crew, or if you're a first time watcher, leave first time watcher in the comments. I want to give you a shout out for being here. Right now, we're going to go into an update on Karmelo Anthony's case. So, quick rundown here. We've done some lives on it, so you can definitely go back and look at those to get a little bit more background, but a real fast summary. A turn track and field competition tournament was happening, and it was down in Frisco, Texas, and these teens were involved in an incident that one of them ended up being fatally stabbed. So Karmelo Anthony, Austin Metcalf, and Hunter Metcalf were all engaged in kind of like what we know right now, maybe some kind of heated discussion, altercation that took place, and it ended up escalating to the point that Austin Metcalf was fatally stabbed and he lost his life. He was only 17 years old, and all of them are teenagers. And kind of what's known right now is that it was raining, and they have pop-up tents, and Karmelo Anthony was sitting under a pop-up tent that was for a different school, and then he was approached by Austin and Hunter, who are twins, and essentially, per Hunter's recounting of what took place, they had said, you need to move, you can't be sitting here. And Karmelo was like, you got to make me move, you got to make me move. And Austin then said, you're going to move. And then Karmelo went into his backpack. And that's when Hunter saw that, his twin was on the floor in pain because he had been stabbed. And so, kind of the way Hunter's version is, it makes it seem as though Karmelo was the aggressor. Because according to him, he was getting all aggressive and disrespectful and saying stuff back when they were just asking him to move. But knowing teenage boys, not knowing the situation because I wasn't there and don't know any of them, but knowing teenage boys in school competitions, there's this territorial kind of sense of, you're sitting in my school's area, you're sitting in my school zone. Why are you over here? So I don't imagine that when the twins, Hunter and Austin, confronted Karmelo, that it was in the friendliest of tones or it was very nice or respectful. It just doesn't give that energy to me. I was in high school. I know what that's like. I know during sports, everybody's completely heightened, just like sports now. When you have two teams playing against each other, people that like one team, or tend to be a little bit more aggressive towards people who like the opposite team. That's just how that goes, and I don't imagine that this was anything different. Now, with that being said, I don't think that it rose to the occasion that somebody should have lost their life because they didn't want you sitting there. I just think that that escalated to a level that was completely unnecessary. And my heart goes out to Austin Metcalf's family for losing a son under 18. They won't get to see him graduate. They won't get to see the family that he may have had. And in that sense, I do feel terrible for them. I also feel for his twin who had to see him, presumably maybe pass away, but definitely injured. And then knowing that that led to his death, I'm sure that there's some trauma there. And I want to acknowledge that. I also want to acknowledge that Carmelo Anthony comes from a good family. And I do think that he was probably defending himself. He says that this was self-defense. I don't believe he went to this track meet with the intent of hurting anybody. I don't believe he went to the track meet with the intent of hurting the person who ended up getting hurt. I think had they not have interacted and crossed paths and whatever was said and took place in that incident to caused him to feel threatened, clearly, because he reacted in that way. So he must have felt some sense of danger or something must have happened to him to make him think he needed to respond that way to protect himself. Had that not have happened, I think we wouldn't know who they are and this would be a very different situation. But unfortunately, it did. And it's just causing a lot of escalation and a lot of negativity that's race-based, and that is unfortunate because I don't think this situation is related to race at all. Carmelo Anthony's Black, and he comes from a Black family, and Austin Metcalf and Hunter Metcalf are white. And so far from what we see, that is reflective of their family as well. And now it's kind of dividing people along racial lines, and I just don't think that makes any sense, or I don't think it fits the situation here at all. I don't think it was racially motivated on either side. I think it was more of a school territorial thing. Like, I don't know you. Why are you sitting in our area? Why are you over here? More than it had anything to do with that. But I'm not in any of these young men's heads, so I can't say for sure what was going through their minds. This is just my take on it from what I have seen so far. This story is definitely getting national attention here. And one of the things that happened recently is that Carmelo Anthony's family held a press conference and his mom spoke. And his mom spoke very passionately. I think it was the first time I had seen her or his father in public since this whole situation had taken place. And during her speech that she was giving, she was talking about how her families had to move because they have been receiving death threats for what they did not do. None of them were there. None of them participated in any of this. This was done allegedly by their son, but they're getting the brunt of it from people just from association, just from being related, which is not anything that they can control. And I'm sure if they could have had any control over the situation, they would not have wanted their son to react in that manner, especially knowing what they know now. But they've been threatened. She talked about our 13-year-old daughter doesn't feel comfortable sleeping in her own room, and I think that's horrible. Her husband's had to take a leave of absence from work, presumably for safety reasons, for threats. People found out his previous employer, and not only does that put him in danger, but the people who work there. as well don't know if somebody's upset about this case and want to take out their frustrations on that because they think, oh, I got a way to hurt this person. And it's just so sad because it should not escalate to that level. These types of things need to be handled by the courts and the law. That's why that system is in place there to handle these types of issues. It shouldn't be based on what you think or what you heard because none of us have all of the facts. We just have what's been available to us as of right now. But there's an investigation that's going on right now, and that will go to trial if it's found that it needs to go to that point. And at that point, a judge or a jury should decide whether or not Karmelo Anthony was in the wrong and what really occurred that day that caused him to react that way. Well, during the press conference, that also the mom spoke about the money from the Give, Send, Go fund that was set up by family members for Karmelo Anthony. That money has not been touched by the family. The last time I checked it was last week, and that's when this press conference took place. So things might be a little bit different now, but the last time I checked it was last week, and they had made $481,000, and their goal was $500,000. So they're pretty close to their goal. They're not quite at their goal yet, but they're almost there. But she's saying none of that money has been touched by them. And at that point in that press conference, they had just recently got notification that they can start drawing funds. And even after they draw funds, it still takes a few days after that for the money to be released. And the reason why she needed to point that out is because people said they were only able to move because of that money, insinuating that the money that was being donated was being used for that. And it wasn't. And that was really sad because it kind of came off as though because they're a Black family, does that mean that they don't have the means to be able to do these things without it being money from that? So the implications of that just didn't come out right. And that's why she needed to address that. Very, very sad situation that I feel like is just being taken completely out of context. And people are using these teens' lives in this situation in the wrong way to try to perpetuate, negative stereotypes and false messages. And I just think it really is something that should be played out in a court of law. But let's talk about a little bit of what occurred recently. So at that press conference, Austin Metcalf's father showed up. And from what I understand, he was in the back, but he was escorted out by law enforcement. And he did not cause a disruption. He was just standing there. I don't know his purpose for being there, and to be honest with you. I'm not sure if he was just kind of trying to be there to represent the family or if there was some overall purpose of why he showed up to this press conference here. But I can also understand he is a father that's hurting because he just lost a child. So I don't know if he felt compelled to be there to hear what they were saying for himself, to confront the family or see the family, but he was escorted out, and that makes sense to me because you don't really know what he's there to do or why he's there. And given all the tension and tenseness that is around this particular case and situation, it does not make sense for him to be there without a kind of a pre-discussion, or that was known that he was going to be a part of it. And he did leave without disruption. I believe he had like a small conversation with law enforcement, but nothing really came from that. But, I think it's interesting. I wonder if the Anthony family showed up to a press conference that Austin Metcalf's family was doing, if they would be greeted and welcomed in, or if they would have the same, response. I don't know that they intend on doing something similar to what Austin's father did, but is something that they can probably say is new for all of them, and they are navigating it in real time, trying to figure it out. Also, another update on that is that the judge that reduced the bond for Karmelo Anthony, Judge Angela Tucker, she has been receiving death threats just for reducing the bail. And that to me is wild. She didn't do anything but her job as a judge, making decisions based on the law, what's within her ability to decide and her ability to set for bail prices. And that too has caused her to become a target just for doing her job. And I can just think of so many cases where bond is reduced, even if it doesn't make sense and nobody reacts this way. But again, I think people are just looking at this case through a lens that it should not be viewed at, and you should really let it go through the court system and let them decide and let these families be in peace. They're already changed for life based on what was done. Austin Metcalf's family is going to be one short at any holiday. Everything in their life is going to be missing one, and that is acknowledged here. And my heart goes out to them as a parent. I don't want to bury any of my children, and I don't want to bury any of my children when they're kids either. So I completely understand that they must be going through a lot right now, trying to navigate something that was completely unexpected. My heart goes out to Hunter Metcalf as well, who lost his twin and maybe even seen it happen or seen him pass away. I know he's experiencing some trauma. You go from, maybe every single day. I don't know how close they were, but twins tend to be close. That you go from being around someone every single day, seeing them every single day, to them being gone over something that I just don't think really required that to happen. But there's only 4 people that know what happened under that tent that got it to the point that it did, and that's Austin Metcalf. May he rest in peace. He can't tell his story. Hunter Metcalf, who shared his version of how he felt it went down. Karmelo Anthony, who I still haven't heard his version. And God. So we'll see what comes from this case, but as more updates are available, we'll definitely come and share them here with the Aries crew. But let me know your thoughts on the case. Definitely interested in hearing what you think from what you've seen on it and heard on the channel. And next, we're going to go into Caleb Wilson. So we got an update on that case. That's another one that I've spoken about on previous lives that you can go back and check out. Just a quick recap on that. Caleb Wilson was a junior at Southern University. Was also part of their marching band, the Human Jukebox, and he played the trumpet. And he was pledging to be a part of Omega Psi Phi, the historically Black fraternity that has been around since 1911, I want to say, was their year of inception. And he unfortunately lost his life during an off-campus, unsanctioned hazing incident where he was allegedly punched in the chest multiple times. And initially, when he was brought to the hospital, and this happened, I want to say at the end of, towards the end of February, and when he was brought to a hospital by some of the young men that were with him, they had initially said he passed out while they were out at the park playing basketball because he came in unconscious. However, after either further investigation or further questioning, whichever way this additional information ended up turning up, they discovered that he was actually at a warehouse, and that's where the activity was taking place, where he was allegedly punched in the chest multiple times. And then the last time he was punched, he fell out, collapsed, and then potentially was having a seizure, allegedly. And then from there, lost consciousness and never really regained consciousness. And then allegedly, the young man changed his clothes from what he was wearing into what he had on when he was taken to the hospital. And allegedly, this was not done immediately. There was about a 10-15-minute delay from when the incident occurred to when he was taken to the hospital, and 911 was not called at any point in time. And the young men did not stay for questioning from the police. Basically, after they dropped him off, they left. And he was pronounced dead probably pretty darn shortly after he was dropped off. And what I believe, not having been there, knowing the circumstances intimately, is that he may still have been alive if more immediate action was taken or if 911 was called. There's a potential he could still be alive, but unfortunately that did not occur, and he lost his life. So, it just started to bring to light questions of, why is hazing still occurring? What's the point of hazing? How does that make you closer in brotherhood or sisterhood? Why does hurting someone or making them do humiliating, nasty things, how does that build a bond? Why is that a part of the process? And I want to point out that Omega Psi Phi is an anti-hazing organization. It does have that stated on their website. However, obviously you can't always control what people are doing under the representation of your name, and it appears some things were going on that was under the name of this organization that they probably would not have sanctioned if they were aware of it. So we have some updates on that. Caleb Wilson's family has launched some billboards by Hyatt Regency Hotel in New Orleans, where members from Omega Psi Phi are holding their annual convention. So this spot was chosen intentionally to have this message in front of people that are part of this organization so that they can see that. It looks like the family is trying to make sure that Caleb's face, name, and memory do not become forgotten and that they stay out there. And much respect to all Black sororities and fraternities. I think they are wonderful organizations that do a lot, and they are trying to improve and better humankind and the world for people of color. So I'm not going to say that what they do and what they stand for is not for betterment, because it definitely is. I'm just hoping it helps with bringing to light that the process should not require anybody to lose their life that's trying to become a part of it, that wants to be a part of it. There's just got to be something different that can be done that keeps it safe. I just don't feel like anybody should lose their life to be a part of these organizations. And stories like this are just reminders that, these are real people behind that. And pledging to be a part of something good should not cost you your life. And I'm sure that's what the family was trying to get across with this message, but we'll keep going. This was being reported by WVUE Fox 8 New Orleans. The message includes images of Caleb Wilson and anti-hazing messages. The goal is to get the attention of the organization. The Caleb Wilson Act was introduced by State Representative Alicia Boyd. And if it does pass, it would require students who are part of organizations on campus to have to take a semester-long course on the dangers of pledging. So, somebody's trying to turn this unfortunate situation into an opportunity to learn and hopefully prevent somebody else from losing their life in the same manner as well. And then we have an update on the three young men who have been arrested and charged with the murder of Caleb Wilson. So the three men who were arrested for the death of Caleb Wilson have been expelled from the fraternity Omega Psi Phi. Those expelled members are Caleb McCrae, Isaiah Smith, and Kyle Thurman. And I did check the Omega Psi Phi public website to see that their names are listed there as expelled members to cross-reference. Only about 200 men have been expelled over the history of the organization. This came from the meeting that the org had in New Orleans, so they must have decided during their annual meeting to go ahead and say, thanks, but no thanks. We don't need your membership in this organization. That was reported by WDSU News. And the billboard for Caleb Wilson that was posted up in the Hyatt Regency across from where the Omega Psi Phi annual convention meeting was taking place was paid for by his aunts and uncles. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Definitely going to be following this story to see, when it goes to trial, what comes out of there. This one really touched me. I was a part of the band back in the day, and so I'm always going to have a soft spot for any band kids. So this one definitely was one that just I felt really sorry that instead of his family getting a chance to see him graduate and walk across the stage for accomplishing a college graduation, they had to plan his burial and say goodbye to their child and future grandkids that they'll never get to see, and all other kinds of experiences and memories they just won't get to make with their child. You send your kids to college to get educated, not to come back in a body bag. So my heart goes out to this family as well, and may Caleb Wilson rest in peace. And next, we're going to go to a really sad story I came across here. Unfortunately, an Alabama father by the name of Jacob Couch has passed away almost 2 weeks after he was attacked by someone yielding a hatchet. To me, that is wild. I don't know what you're carrying a hatchet for or what your purpose is for having that out. That was a little bit strange to me. That's not something you hear every day that people are carrying. The incident that led to his death happened at a bus stop in broad daylight. Jacob was nearly had his head severed. That's how hard he was struck, which to me just makes no sense. I mean, the amount of power and anger and frustration you have to almost take somebody's head off, to me, it's just unreal what happened to him. The father was only 32 years old and passed away on Thursday night after being on life support. The incident took place in Tucson, Arizona. Jacob's sister-in-law, Erica Sims, told KGUN 9 News, and this is information I'm getting from TMZ, that he developed pneumonia and his heart gave out. The attack was allegedly conducted by Daniel Michael, who randomly attacked Jacob the morning of April 5th when he was sitting at a bus stop with his wife, Kristen Couch, which is terrible because, she saw that, and that's just awful for you to have to experience. They had moved to Los Angeles for 10 months to grieve the loss of their stillborn child that occurred in 2024. The couple had 2 daughters from previous relationships. The alleged attacker was taken into police custody and was originally charged with aggravated assault with a dangerous instrument and causing serious physical injury. Police have amended Daniel's charges to first-degree murder. He is being held at the Pima County Adult Detention Center on a $2 million bond as of Saturday morning. So may that father, Jacob Couch, rest in peace. Horrible attack. Sounds like it was senseless and pointless, but we're definitely going to keep an eye on this one as well. And we'll be back on live tomorrow. We're going to have some great stories. We're going to talk about Shannon Sharpe is being sued, Uncle Shay Shay, for $50 million. So we're going to get into that. Pope Francis has passed away at 88. So we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. And we have some other stories lined up to go into. If you have not already done so, like the video. It doesn't cost you anything, and it goes a long way. It helps with the YouTube algorithm. We'd love to have you a part of the Aries crew. So while you're here, if you're still on, hit that subscription button. We'd love to have you over here. We have a great time. And then make sure you hit that notification bell so you can find out every time I go live, post videos, post on the community page, and post shorts. I appreciate you spending part of your day and watching. Share this live out with family and friends. We're trying to reach 1,800 subscribers by the summer. So we'd love your support to help the channel grow. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow and have a wonderful evening. Thanks for watching. And let me show you my live schedule for the week real quick. Take a quick screenshot. I'll also post on the community page. We'll see you later. Thanks for watching.